Someone like Mukesh Ambani, how does he manage his wealth?
If you be patient enough and you've made your first crore will turn into your second crore only in next 8 years. From fifth crore onward, Sharan, you start adding a crore every year. 40% of Indian parents still think that their children will take care of them. India still isn't realizing enough the cost and the nightmares of healthcare.
Like for example, today a heart surgery might cost 5 lakhs. In 20 years from now, how much do you think it will cost?
Take a 10% inflation, so which means 20 lakhs in 7 years, and in 14 years, 40 lakhs.
I think what we are soon realizing is that India doesn't have a investing problem. The bigger problem is that India has a spending problem.
Don't go into exotic stuff. Don't jump into newer products. Don't jump into direct stock trading. Don't jump into those futures and options unless you have a...
On today's episode of the 1% Club show, we have Mohit Gang, founder of Moneyfront, an ultra HNI investment firm. In this episode, we'll delve into the roadmap of becoming a millionaire, how the ultra-rich invest, and how healthcare can make you go broke.
Hi Mohit.
Hi Sharan.
Very excited to have you because you're somebody who manages money for a lot of rich people. So I want to ask you before we begin this podcast, what is the last salary you were drawing before starting out your own company?
My fixed comp when I quit in 2016 June was around 65 odd lakhs.
65 lakhs fixed. This is 2017?
2016.
2016?
Yeah.
Okay. And
obviously there were some chunks of bonuses and other things.
So let's say I'm 25 years old. I'm making 50K per month. Okay. I come to you and I say, I want to become a millionaire. What kind of financial planning journey would you show me?
Okay, look, I think for someone who's starting his career, starting his investment journey, it's extremely important to catch one road and just stick to it and keep it as simple as possible. Don't go into exotic stuff. Don't jump into newer products. Don't jump into direct stock trading. Don't jump into those futures and options unless you have a huge pot which you have created. The definition of huge pot again can vary from individual to individual, but my sense is from 25 age till 35 age, which is the first 10 years of your life. If you can keep this formula very simple and stick to basic mutual funds and keep allocating that 20% and more as your salary permits, as your financial conditions permit, if you can keep doing that regularly, right, no which ways that you will not attain financial freedom. I'll try and give some mathematical numbers behind it. If you save 15,000 rupees a month for 15 years put together, and if we assume a 15% rate of return, 15% can be a slightly higher rate of return to assume, but for sake of computation. So you would have made your first 1 crore, right? If you be patient enough and you've made your first crore, that first crore will turn into your second crore only in next 8 years. And that second crore will turn into your third crore only in 3 years from there on. Which means the first one is the tougher one to get, is the tougher one to crack. If you're patient enough and if you stay your course for that 15 years, the second one comes much earlier because of the sheer power of compounding. And the third one is then only at the third year. And from fifth crore onward, Sharan, you start adding a crore every year.
So until reaching a crore, stick to normal mutual funds.
Stick to normal mutual funds, stick to basics, stick to simpler things in life. Then if you really want to go, perhaps start building a direct stock portfolio if you've learned enough in the market. If you've gained enough experience after 10 years, how markets move, if you've seen 1 or 2 volatile phases, correction phases, what kind of stocks, then you decide your category that, okay, I will only go into blue chips, perhaps, and I'll do mid or small caps through mutual funds. Or maybe, let's say I am convinced and I can research enough and I will go into some mid caps or small caps and I will do other forms through mutual, but to each one his own, right? So then you go into that maybe. And after you've earned considerable amount of wealth, I would still say
what is the considerable amount of wealth?
My sense is at least $500,000.
So about 4 crores.
About 4 crores, or perhaps let's say at around 3 crores and above, right? You can then start looking into some PMS options or other options if at all you want.
So it's like a more riskier mutual fund.
Absolutely, with a minimum regulatory ticket size of 50 lakhs to be into a regulated
after 3
PMS.
crores, you're saying you can explore some PMS.
Yes.
Tell me that journey. 3 crore ho gaya.
I would say $1 million.
Then 8 crore ho gaya.
8 crore. 8 crore अगर हो जाता है आपके पास में, then perhaps you have that leeway and knowledge and experience both as an investor, that you can try and explore AIF options, which is alternate investment funds, which comes at a ticket size of about 1 crore.
So, okay. So after 8 crore, then what should I target before exploring other things?
Okay, look, there is no dearth of financial products which are there.
Just humor me. I just want to see how that journey goes. Let's say 8 crore ho gaya. Next kya karna hai?
After you've attained that crazy wealth, which could be anything to anyone. It could be a 2 million number or a 5 million number.
Let's look at people living in metro cities.
Depends.
So let's assume 5 million.
Haan.
5 million mein 40 crore.
Then you go for unlisted investments, private equity investments.
So startup investing, private equity investing, credit investing. You invest into VC funds through some vehicles or through some routes and participate in the private equity market or the private investment market, which basically
again is becoming a fad.
You're going into companies which are very small and which are
unknown, unexplored, uncharted territories, binary results also. The problem, Sharan, today is that the first guy who makes the 10-20 lakh portfolio, he comes to us and he says कि कोई unlisted investment कर सकते हैं क्या, NSE के शेयर मिल रहे हैं क्या, या फिर आपको HDB Financial मिल रहा है या Hero Financial Corporation मिल रहा है. Boss, you've made 10 lakh rupees in mutual fund portfolio, 20 lakh. You don't even understand the volatility in the financial markets. You don't even understand the pricing of those shares. Are they rightly priced, not rightly priced? Just thinking that someone will go to IPO and you will make huge amount of money is the biggest fallacy on the street today. And I see so many of these retail investors getting lured into that unlisted investment space. And there are so many firms which are mushrooming around, which are offering those unlisted shares in kilos and dozens and whatever quantity you want to, right? Boss, that's crazy. That's absolutely risky. One day this bubble bursts and people will be wondering what happened to their money and it's stuck forever. Sometimes if markets turn bad, companies can take ages to get listed.
So that until we covered 40 crores, and then beyond that, what happens?
Beyond that, you hire a private wealth manager. People starts fancying those ideas that I will pay a private wealth manager. I'll have my own reporting structures, my own family offices, my own proprietary desks, right? And you can have then multiple things. You will then go into structuring of your family wealth and maybe forming some trusts and trying international investments. That also becomes a fad at a fairly early thresholds at times.
So if somebody comes to you, like let's say they came to you for advice, and they're like hell-bent on buying a house, but you know that if they buy that house, they will get into financial ruin. How do you convince that person not to buy the house?
I have got so many of such people who have invested and taken wrong property calls in their lives. Because at a point in time, then you also realize your kids are going abroad for education. Parents are getting old. They can't manage so many properties, right? What will you do? What will you do with those 5-10 different properties? One in Pune, one in Chandigarh, one in Noida. How do you manage it? And then two in Mumbai, right? So how do you manage it all? And so you're now in that process of liquidating it, everything. And then trying and accumulating again into financial assets. Very few of them I really see coming and saying, okay, this property investment of mine was a huge success. It's turned into mega bucks and is giving me some huge returns and I'm very happy with it or whatever. But all I'm saying is few of these calls, I think people go through experiences and then learn. For people who learn it early in lives and believe in the power of financial assets are the real ones I've seen actually creating a lot of wealth for themselves. Look, finally, the definition of being rich, and a lot of people use that as a measure of being rich, is when your passive income is higher than your active income, which means you've accumulated enough that it can generate so much.
Word passive income. A lot of people, get an when they hear passive income, right? And they make a lot of mistakes because they're like, okay, I'll buy a house and get rent. That is the mistake they make. They make like, I'll buy a 2 BHK house, I'll give it for rent. I'll get the rental income. So that is passive income. I've made a good decision, right? Before putting into financial markets, they do this.
Absolutely.
Right? So this, and that is just what, 2% passive income they're getting?
I honestly, I think if that's the definition which people perceive, then it's a fairly wrong definition. The way of looking at it is, let's say if you've built a 5 crore portfolio, right? And you assume an FD rate of return on that, which could be 7 to 8%, depending on whatever you want to do. Let's assume an 8%, which means 40 lakhs a year. So if you have a corpus which can sustain or give you 40 lakhs a year, right? And that's good enough for your expenses, that takes care of all your lifestyle or whatever, right? And if you're comfortable with that, means you've attained first level of financial freedom in life, which means you are good enough, basically, right? So that's one measure which quite a lot of people use.
So I was just looking at the stats in India. Out of 140 crore people in the country, there are barely about 8 lakh people who are millionaires. Millionaires are also called HNIs, high net worth individuals. And the next stage is ultra high net worth individuals. And there are about 20,000 people.
Right.
I want to know, like, what is something that only an ultra HNI can invest in? Like, what are these innovative things that, the ultra rich of the country invest in, which is not accessible to middle class Indians?
So let's say structured notes are extremely popular instruments in the ultra HNI bracket, where I'll just give you an example. Let's say if there is a construct that in 3 years, whatever Nifty does, you get a participation rate of 2x the Nifty or 3x the Nifty, and your downside is protected, which means your downside won't be 80% of the starting level of Nifty. Let's say if you start today, your downside will be hedged at 80% or will be protected at 80%. It's more like a sophisticated version of playing the options.
Just to summarize, you're saying that there are products out there that, let's say if I put 100 rupees, my upside will be, and if the Nifty gave, let's say 10% returns, I'm going to get 20% returns.
Yes.
On the upside.
Yes.
Double of what Nifty is giving.
Yes. Or most of the times there is a higher cap, which means, let's say if Nifty goes beyond 25%, then the max you can make is 50%. You won't get beyond that. Even if Nifty goes to 40, 50, 100%, then you will be capped at potentially double of whatever at 50% level.
And
right?
What is the minimum investment that these kind of products require?
Now, these products typically start with a 1 crore ticket size. But if you're getting it customized to yourself, let's say if you have an idea, if I have a conviction around 4 stocks and I want to cap a collar structure around them, or if I have a conviction around, let's say, Bank Nifty, or if I have conviction around some other kind of product, then I will get it made one for myself. And when I get it constructed, then perhaps the ticket size could be 10 crores or a 20 crore kind of a ticket size.
And a lot of rich people do this.
Quite a lot of them.
Like, what is the biggest concern that these HNIs and ultra HNIs have? Because they already have money. They already have more money than they know what to spend, maybe for the next 5 generations. So what are they really worried about? Like, when you talk to these people, what are the problems in their life?
I think it gets complicated to a level that you don't want to pay too much of taxes. Right. So you have to try and manage too much of chop and churn in your portfolio, because the tax amounts could be fairly large depending on the size of your portfolio. Obviously you want to preserve your capital. That instinct of preservation becomes extremely strong as compared to instinct of creation.
So basically their problem is, how do I not pay enough taxes? Save my money as much as possible.
Most of these guys, Sharan, also deploy legal firms. It's not just about deploying a private wealth advisor. They also have legal firms to help them legally in terms of how to construct these vehicles, basically. So they will have larger law firms advising them. But
like someone like Mukesh Ambani, how does he manage his wealth?
I wish I had an answer to that, and I was one of the parties managing something. But
so he'll probably give his money to multiple advisors, multiple financial firms.
I think for him, his business itself is so huge that for him, investments into his businesses is also something of a financial call only. Let's say if he's going out and shopping for a company or acquiring a company or delisting one of his own so many of unlisted properties, that in itself is an event for him. My sense is, for at that level, perhaps the focus is more on how you are running and consolidating and expanding your own business empire. Is there an opportunity overseas to acquire a different company, to expand your business, to unlist and unlock value of some of your existing businesses? I think those are the calls which he's taking.
So let's say spending 7,000 crores. Is he like breaking an FD and paying for that marriage, or like how do they spend money?
Actually, that's a very good learning for all the Indians out there in the market, right? Even if he spent $1 billion, he's not spent more than 0.4% of his net worth on that marriage of his son. An average Indian family has to take out learning and say to himself or herself that, boss, in my daughter's wedding or in my son's wedding, I'm not going to spend more than that 1%, 2%. I see so many families. Again, as I said, I come from a town where marriages and buying houses is a fad. People are born for that and they die with that.
I think what we are soon realizing is that India doesn't have a investing problem. Right? A lot of people say, people are not investing, financial literacy low. The bigger problem is that India has a spending problem. Right? Okay. We don't know how to spend our money and what to spend on. Right? The money, most people just keep the money in the savings account. And that's not savings, because money gets spent the fastest in your savings account only.
Absolutely.
So it should be called spending account.
Money
right?
finds ways to go out and dissipate if it is kept in savings account, right? You have to quickly be able to lock it up.
Correct.
Lock it up in a manner that you invest it into some kind of a financial asset wherever you are comfortable.
No, one more thing. A lot of people today are very confident and not caring enough. And I'll tell you why. Because they are like, my parents have not invested in mutual fund, stock market. They have invested their entire life in FDs. They are chilling, they are comfortable, they are not worried about money. Why should I worry about money? So what is your answer for that?
There's one very important and very interesting stat, Sharan, which says that 40% of Indian parents still think that their children will take care of them at the age of retirement. And they are still living in that zone. Perhaps that's true for our generation, right? Incrementally, this number honestly won't stand that kind of percentages or that higher percentages as generations move by. So people have to provision and work for themselves. Still, 40% believe that will happen. 60% still don't believe that will happen. I don't know what is the true number of how much does it actually happen, right? But finally, the generation which is getting older is a hugely dependent generation. The US of today perhaps might be India of tomorrow, 30 years down the line.
Yeah.
Where children, once they get independent, they'll just move out on their own zones and everyone fetches for themselves.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, the generation which is now working, when it retires, it will have to provision for itself. There will be no children to give them monthly expenses or take care of their healthcare. Healthcare is something which is going to balloon out of proportion, right? India still isn't realizing enough the cost and the nightmares of healthcare in this country. Medical is something which will go through crazy inflation in next 10, 15, 20 years as expert medication or private medication will become dearer and dearer, right? So people will have to provision.
Like for example, today a heart surgery might cost 5 lakhs. In 20 years from now, how much do you think it'll cost?
Take a 10% inflation on a lesser side. 10%
right? Inflation every year.
10% inflation will mean you double every 7 years of cost, right? So which means 20 lakhs in 7 years and in 14 years, 40 lakhs from here on.
So you are assuming that today if it's 10 lakhs,
in 14 years it'll be 40 lakhs.
No, in fact, medical inflation in all the big cities, most of the audience is living in Bangalore, Mumbai and Delhi. Their medical inflation is actually 15%. That's the stats
I don't
that
even
I'm
want to hazard a guess where the number will go at 15%.
15% is doubling every 4 years.
Absolutely. So doubling every 4 years, if it is 5 lakhs today, it becomes 10 in 4 and it becomes 20 in 8 and it becomes 40 in 16 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's going to be
insane.
like that can actually wipe out your portfolio, right?
Lifelong savings can just go down the drain in one shot.
Have you seen many examples like this in your experience?
Not many, but I have seen people withdrawing huge chunks of their savings because of medical emergencies and everything. If you're not very well provisioned on health insurance and everything, right? But not too many cases as of now. As I said, India is still a place where you can afford good healthcare at very, very reasonable prices.
So to maybe end this conversation, I want to ask you, would you say have you personally reached the stage where your passive income has exceeded your requirements?
If I see myself as a nuclear person, then perhaps I would have reached that stage. But if I see myself as a family person with my daughter, my wife, my parents and everyone, then obviously the thresholds are a little higher because you have to provision for quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my wife works. So quite a number of things are taken care of. But if I were to assume ourselves as a family, then obviously the thresholds are higher.
Cool. Anything else you want to end the conversation with?
No, I think, look, honestly, there are no quick fixes in life, Sharan. I have realized it the hard way.
Yeah.
The only secret sauce out there is you go every day, do your drill, and just keep building slowly and steadily. I think there's no which ways that you don't win the long game.
Yeah.
And people should be bothered more about the long game, not about that next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. As long as you're playing 15 years.
As long as you have a good education, you speak English, and you're in a big city of India, I think those 3 are good enough ingredients, the bare minimum ingredients for you to be successful. Depending on how much you have of that, success might be lesser or more.
I think I tend to agree on that point.
Cool, guys. I hope you guys learned a little bit about money in this conversation, this intensely deep conversation, understanding how money works and how the rich live their life and how you can be rich as well. All right, guys, on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one.